Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Paceroos Podcast, the only Australian NBA podcast with a not-so-biased tint towards our beloved Indiana Pacers. My name's Adam. I'm your host today, and I'm joined once again by Alex.
Yeah, great to be here. Episode 2. Exciting times. World Cup finals coming up.
And Justin.
Yeah, thanks. Really excited to get this show underway. A lot's happened in the past week since we recorded episode 1, so looking forward to it.
Great, thanks guys. A lot to get through today. We've got World Cup to discuss. We've got a couple of Pacers that have had mixed results, I think, in terms of the influence with the World Cup. We've also got to talk about minutes allocations without Victor Oladipo. That's going to be a key for the Pacers' first couple of months of the season, and they've got a relatively soft schedule, so I'm interested to hear how you guys want the minutes kind of cut up, what your concerns are about the lineups that we have, and any sort of quirky lineups you'd like to see employed over the course of the first couple of months of the season. We'll start with the World Cup, though. Obviously, Miles Turner for the USA and Domas Sabonis for Lithuania have played their first group games. They're about to play their second round group games. And we've had some mixed sort of stat lines. Alex, you got a couple of averages there for the guys.
Definitely. Miles Turner, Team USA has been somewhat disappointing. They struggled against Turkey, almost got the loss, but they escaped 3-0, so they'll definitely take that. But Miles with averages of 8 points, 11 rebounds, and just under 2 blocks a game. So, pretty standard for Miles. He doesn't really get used in their offense a lot, but the 11 rebounds per game is what stands out for me. He's been incredible on the boards this World Cup, and hopefully he can carry that into the season. But then going over to Domas, a little bit of everything for him. 11 points, 7 points, 6 rebounds and 4 assists a game. So, that's what Sabonis does. He's just Mr. Consistent. He can do it all. Again, they haven't really used him a lot, and we talked about this before, but Lithuania's offense doesn't really utilize their big men. They really focus on their guards. So I think both players have been played well, but I think they're being underused by their teams.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed particularly the Lithuania-Australia game, because I watched that pretty much start to finish, is just the lack of sort of system in place to capitalise on their two big men. I don't know whether you guys noticed the same in the highlights, but I found that the guards for Lithuania were kind of getting a lot of picks set for them, getting a lot of mid-range jumpers off, a lot of drives to the basket, but there's very little sort of dump-off passes to the big guys. There's very little post-play. And you've got arguably one of the sort of young, talented offensive players, premier young, talented offensive players in the world in Domas Sabonis on your team. So surely you would want to get involved a little bit more than you have. I don't know whether it's a style thing or whether it's a misconception about maybe they haven't seen how good he's been for Indy the last couple of years. But, he's been our bench sort of scorer, especially last season. So
yeah, definitely. I think going back to Miles as well with Team USA, I'm not too fussed about the stats per game. I think the experience is just really good for him to start centre for Team USA. I think that's going to carry a lot of confidence into this season with Pacers. Domas, I think he should have got the ball more against Australia, but coming from our point of view, Australia did defend. I'm sure they pushed Lithuania into what they didn't want to do. It was a really good matchup and great for our Boomers.
Yeah, it was massive. I think, obviously, Domas was guarded by Jock Landale and Nick Kay a lot in the game as well. So sort of smaller guys, guys that are sort of mirroring what he's going to come up against in the NBA in terms of height and in terms of quickness. So, it was an interesting test for how he's going to come up against those players when he has to guard them more regularly.
Yeah, exactly. But, we've all seen Domas play, so he's just dominant in the post. I can't see why he wouldn't be dominating guys like Landale, guys like Kay. These are NBL players that he really should be just dominating, and we saw that. He did score in the post when he got the ball. So, like you said, I'm not sure if it's just a system thing. I think this might be his first World Cup. So
yeah, he's still only young. I think we forget how young Miles and Domas still are.
Both 23 years old, so a lot of time to develop.
Chances are they'll play in at least 2 more World Cups each.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of time there. But, I think you hit the nail on the head, Justin. Miles Turner's experience level in this World Cup. We've seen... I was just watching the other day the US-Turkey final from 2010, which is on the Australian streaming service on demand. So check that out if you're in Australia. But Just looking at the guys across that team, a really young Russell Westbrook, a really young Eric Gordon, a few guys that had only been drafted in the 1 or 2 seasons prior to that, and the careers that they were able to have to catapult off that were, incredible. They were impressive as NBA players before they went to the World Cup. But, I mean, you look at a guy like Durant, he went from a borderline all-star to a superstar in essentially one summer across 2010, 2011 because of his development, but also the way that he carried that US team. So if Miles can turn into that, rebounding, shot-blocking center that every great NBA team needs, if he can improve his rebounding to bring it up to the right level, I think, we're looking at a really dominant player that's going to anchor us for the next 10 years.
Yeah, you hear all the great players speak once they retire as well. They say a big pivotal point in their career is the Olympics and the World Cup when, MJ had Larry and Magic to look up to, Kobe had MJ, and then, LeBron and Carmelo and these sort of guys, they all take experience, the locker room experience as well. I think Miles is going to come back with a newfound confidence, playing with guys like Mitchell and Kemba Walker. You can see he said after the Turkey win it was the greatest game he's ever been a part of, and he'd go to war with any of them guys. That just shows how much confidence is built in playing these sort of tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. And I think being under Popovich as well is going to help him a lot. He's an old school coach. He's going to want you to crash the boards, go after every rebound, which Miles really has struggled with in the past. So, and Steve Kerr as well. The coaching staff for USA has always been incredible, but this year especially.
Yeah, look at the centers that Popovich has had over his last 20 years. I mean, going back to Robinson, obviously Duncan, even guys like Rasho Nesterovic and Nazir Muhammad in the mid-90s, like those were rebounding guys. That was their primary skill. So it's clear that he has an expectation for his centers to be big rebounders. Yeah. And that's something that we need Miles to be, that he hasn't necessarily shown the penchant for yet. So hopefully, and very much like Roy Hibbert wasn't a great rebounder but a great shot blocker, Miles isn't a great rebounder but a great shot blocker. So if we can close that skill gap, then it'll pay massive dividends. So Domas and Miles obviously Pacers centric for the World Cup. Overall, any thoughts on how the World Cup's going? I know, Justin, you were mentioning before about the USA-Turkey game and how entertaining that was and the missed free throws.
Yeah, obviously I thought Turkey had it in the bag, 4 missed free throws by NBA players, I think. So pretty crazy. Like I said before, Miles said it was the greatest game he's played in. I just want to give a shout out to the Boomers. I think so good watching them play. I'd be nearly to go as far to say as Patty Mills is the greatest Australian basketballer behind Andrew Gaze now. For what he's given the country, I know it's a big call, but he's just given this country so much. He's carried this team on the back. The amount of clutch shots he's hit. I remember back in the day in 2009 when Pacers had a second-round draft pick. I wanted them to pick Patty Mills, but we selected AJ Price, and I was filthy.
Fair enough too.
Yeah, Portland picked Mills a couple of picks later, and I knew it was the wrong decision. But look, that's probably something for another episode. But yeah, I think Patty Mills has just been terrific.
I think we can pretty much open up our push for the Pacers to sign an Australian player here, right now. There's a couple of guys out there.
Chris Golding as well. He's been absolutely incredible for the Boomers. And some NBA team has to pick him up.
I mean, I've been really impressed with Nick Kay. I was down on him in the first USA exhibition game that I attended because he looked a bit lost out there. He didn't look like he really knew his role in the team. Maybe it took him a little while to understand that he's the glue guy, he's the hustle guy, he's plays really hard defense, finishes off good offensive plays, but he's not expected to do any more than get on the end of good play by others and complement the players around him. And that's the sort of bench guy that you need in the NBA to be able to come out. I mean, this is the way that Nick Kay is playing now is the way that Joe Ingles was looking at playing 10 years ago. So, you see shades of that sort of a contributor in Nick Kay, but also Mitch Creek's been really good. I mean, his ability to get rebounds at his height is underrated. He got a couple of rebounds against Lithuania that I went, oh wow, he's a lot shorter than everyone else around him. He hasn't necessarily had the opportunities to be able to score, but I think with Langdale, with Kay, with Creek, you've got some key Australian role players that are kind of auditioning for the NBA at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see if any of them, can get opportunities. Creek obviously had one last year, but
Summer League as well. This past summer
he should be in the NBA. I think he did well for Timberwolves. He did well for Brooklyn. I actually don't know why he can't fill out a roster spot. I think he's great. Coming off the bench for any NBA team, to be honest.
And that's another reason this World Cup is so massive for Australian basketball. Like, ultimately, you see what Argentina had 10 or 15 years ago when they won, the gold medal. And then you had guys like Andres Nocioni. You had a couple of other guys that sort of got opportunities that maybe prior to that wouldn't have got opportunities. But because Argentinian basketball was put on the map by how good their team was, all of a sudden scouts started to look more towards their players. And I feel like we've got the opportunity for the same thing to happen to us. You've got the headliners that aren't playing like Ben Simmons, but at the same time, you've got other complementary guys that hopefully, scouts will see. These guys are going to be really good influences in our locker room. They're going to play really hard. They're going to practice really hard. They're going to bring out the best of the players around them. And it doesn't matter what team sport you play, you need those guys.
Just on Patty Mills as well, he currently has 18 points and 7 assists, so balling out right now. And Nick Kay as well, 7 points, 8 rebounds. He's been really impressive actually. And the Pacers do need a backup for potentially if TJ Leaf doesn't pan out this year. So
just for the listeners listening to this in a couple of weeks, we are recording this at the time of the Australian Boomers versus Dominican Republic second round bracket game. So we will probably reference a couple of stats throughout. But what's the score?
Just up by 6 right now with 4 minutes to go, 73-67. So
probably a little bit closer than I would like against the Dominicans. We should be sort of getting a bit of a statement game out. I feel like the only real statement game we had was the Canada game. So we need another big win, I think. Who's the other major team in our group that we're shooting to play? So France in a couple of days. That's our biggest test.
That's a very good team,
they've got obviously a lot of talent. And I think that Germany win was really impressive right at the start as well. It was a really, I think they got down quite heavily to Germany and clawed their way back and then won that game. But the World Cup is obviously massive. Any change in predictions with the US, or are we still sticking fat with the fact that the US are going to take home the trophy?
Look, I remember I did say in episode 1 USA would go undefeated, and I've probably taken a little step back on that. Obviously, I was nearly wrong the next game. So, look, they may do so, but I think watching them, they do have their struggles offensively and defensively. I think they may not go undefeated from here, but I'm personally more excited to watch the Boomers play than the USA. That's just me personally. I love the way they're playing. That USA wins obviously just built them with so much confidence going forward. I think, who knows, this could be the year Boomers pull a massive upset.
You never know. Like, the fact that they beat the US, it didn't necessarily mean anything, as we said at the time. It's an exhibition game, but for their confidence, they can now go into any game thinking that they either are the favourites or that they have a really solid opportunity to be able to pull out a win. And that's going to be pivotal against teams like Spain and Serbia, because I'd say that they're the two major threats to our ability to make a World Championship final if we don't run into the US in the quarters or semis. Obviously, with Serbia having those two big men, they're kind of reminiscent of Australia in a lot of ways, having Boban and obviously Nikola Jokic. And then with Spain, a lot of aging veterans like your Marc Gasol, your Sergio Llull,
Ricky Rubio
as well.
Don't mention him on the podcast.
That was... look, okay, very quick straw poll. Near miss, or are you disappointed that you didn't get Ricky Rubio?
I saw your little tweet a couple of weeks ago, Alex. He was on your most hated Pacers team ever.
Six man.
Yeah. I think we're all...
And he didn't play a minute. There you go.
I honestly can tell you right now, I've never seen Pacers Twitter that upset about a player or a free agent. Maybe Doug McDermott, but that was a tiny reaction compared to Ricky Rubio.
We are all proud members of Pacers Twitter, and Pacers Twitter is a wonderful place, but we were all so down on Ricky Rubio.
100%.
I think it turned into one of those massive moments in life where it's like, where were you when you heard Ricky Rubio was not going to the Pacers? I remember what I was doing, and everyone does. when they heard he was going to Phoenix. It's just one of those
And then
life-changing
Brogdon,
moments.
we signed Brogdon about 3 minutes later, or Lamb and Brogdon in about 5 minutes span after that. So one of the craziest 5 minutes I've ever witnessed.
I just remember sending a lot of all caps text messages. Firstly, in celebration for Ricky Rubio, very best of luck in Phoenix this year, Ricky, if you're listening. But look, if you are, then fuel to the fire. Let's the torches in the 1 or 2 games that you played against us this year. That's fine. But then Malcolm Brogdon, the signing with Malcolm Brogdon, everyone was just so excited because it's the first time we've ever got a free agent that we've really gone after of that caliber, of that sort of borderline all-star caliber since David West. And that's a long time. What was that? It was 2011, 2012?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So you're talking about 7 or 8 years since we've been able to sign someone with a resume of a borderline all-star.
And David West was coming off a major knee injury as well. I think if he wasn't, he would have had other takers and probably went elsewhere. It's funny, I think other fans of teams would laugh at Pacers, and after Kevin Pritchard said, this was one of the greatest days in franchise history after Brogdon signed with us. But as a Pacer fan, he is right. We know how hard it is to get free agents to want to play for us. David West is our best free agent signing ever. And then you go down the list and it's...
Would Brogdon be second, though? I think he would be.
Brogdon would be second, nearly first, depending on how his career pans out.
In the 2000s, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you go down the list. I think I saw something recently where CJ Miles was in the top 5 free agents we've signed, which is so surprising and shows how tough it is for us.
But then you look down the list and you look at the players that we've, acquired via trade. And technically Brogdon's one of those, but I don't really count it because he's a restricted free agent. But overall, the players that we've acquired by trade have been the ones that have taken us into the playoffs. And we've signed free agents that complement the players that we've been able to trade for. But overall, the free agent pool for the Pacers has been really, really shallow for a really long time. And hopefully, we always go after high character guys. We always go after those strong personalities that are going to be positive influences on the younger guys. And hopefully, Vic, Miles, Domas, Malcolm Brogdon, TJ Warren, because we all know that he's going to be significantly better with a decent coach and a decent team this year. We can be a destination in the future because we've got the same salary cap as everyone else. So, and Indy is a cool little city. So, I think that's something that we need to hopefully make a push for the next few years is to, after this group sort of runs its course, really go after those free agents with the promise of you're going to win if you come here because you are going to play playoffs, you are going to compete, you are going to win, but we can't do it all without a couple of free agents agreeing.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing, I think, as Pacers fans throughout the world would know, is we're always competitive. We are always a good team. We never bottom out. But then, you've got certain other teams in the league, they can always be pretty bad or not build a team the correct way, and then the players will always want to go to their team. But with Brogdon, I'm actually overly excited about him. I think we haven't had a real impact point guard in so long. I think he's still got a pass-first mentality, which a lot of our point guards always do, but he can now hit the shot, he can defend. I think Brogdon could be our best point guard since Mark Jackson. And that's a big call, but I can see him in the future, 3-4 years down the line. What have we had? Jamal Tinsley, George Hill.
Jeff Teague as well.
Jeff Teague. I do think Brogdon will be our best point guard since Mark Jackson.
On the scoring as well, Brogdon was almost a 16-point per game scorer. On that Bucks team, he was the 4th option on some nights, Giannis, Middleton, Bledsoe, and Lopez. Yeah. He might have been the 5th option, so... I think he can easily be a 20-plus point guy, but like you said, he's going to be a pass-first guy, so Domas and Miles, he's going to look for them first, but I think he'll definitely get his shots up.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you just said then, Justin, about the Pacers not bottoming out, and a question struck me that I'd like to ask the two of you, and that is, have you ever wished that we would?
Yes. To be honest, there was 1 year, I think, whether it was the Paul George trade year. I thought there was 1 year we should have bottomed out, but I knew we weren't going to. If you know Herb Simon, Larry Bird, Kevin Pritchard, Donnie Walsh, we're just not going to bottom out. It's like when fans, Russell Westbrook was up on the trade block and some Pacer fans, we should get Westbrook. we are not getting a Russell Westbrook on this team. He does not fit our identity. It's just not going to happen. So the Pacers will never bottom out.
Nah, you're right. I mean, I could not tell you how many first-round picks, how many number one overall picks we've had. Maybe, have we even had...
Well, I think there's a stat, we haven't had a top 10 pick since 1999.
Yeah.
And apart from the Spurs, it's the worst in the league. So I always send that to my mates and say, look how good Indiana is. We haven't had a top 10 pick.
I mean, we have the second most playoff appearences, I think, in the 2000s behind the Spurs.
Exactly right. And we've had not a top 10 pick in 20 years.
Yeah.
It's consistent, and I guess at times it can be frustrating because you look at a Philadelphia and you look at 5 years of pain, but you then look at a contender.
Yeah, and Embiid and Simmons is pretty good results out of a few years of struggle.
Yeah, you look at the process.
But see, is it better doing it that way then? Because now Philly are contending for a championship where we're probably just behind the eight ball. So would fans prefer to bottom out and tank like Philadelphia did to win a championship?
It's a great question. I think the PG injury year was the year that I was sort of thinking we have to make some moves. We have to get some assets in. But I think we kept every other player that we had. We didn't really, sell high on anyone on our list at that point. And, we got Miles from it. Great. It's worked out really well. We made a really good pick. And I must say that when we have had those lottery picks, we've made good picks. Cough, Kawhi, cough. But PG, with Miles Turner, we've made some really good, late lottery picks when we've had that opportunity.
Reggie as well was late lottery. So.
Yeah. We always draft well, and that's the thing with Pacers. I think
Except after 20.
Yeah, Bird and Pritchard do say for us to contend, we have to draft well and trade well. That's, we can't sign a Anthony Davis or a LeBron James.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of risk in tanking. Look at the Suns. They've just been terrible for almost a decade, drafting guys like Bender. So, yes, you can go Philly's way and maybe you get lucky. Embiid was a risk with his injuries and whatnot.
Simmons can't shoot. It's always a risk.
It's really, the Suns are a good litmus test because they did tank, but their culture was eroded by tanking. Yeah, so, exactly. Philly's culture was also eroded, but they just started again. Yeah. They just got rid of literally everyone and started again. Indy's never going to be in a position where they get rid of, all the coaching staff, all the support staff. Well, yeah. It's a family. They talk about the team as a family, and being in a small market, that kind of lends itself well to that. So we can't afford to rot away that culture because it'll take us twice as long to build up a positive culture. So I think the answer overall is we don't want them to tank, but we'd love it if a free agent could join every now and again like Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah, I think just quickly a little sub-note to that is Philadelphia had fans who will show up while they were tanking. You see those years where they were tanking, their stadium was still full. Their fans were passionate. I think Indiana, you would see that fan base drop off a touch. Once you lose a fan, it can take years or you might never get them to come back. So I think that's what Indiana based that on as well.
Spot on. Good chat, guys. I think next topic we were going to cover today was around Victor Oladipo and the lineups we'd probably like to see, the minutes distribution we'd like to see across the first couple of months of the season that he's slated not to be involved in. So, Alex, I'll start with you. Yeah. What sort of lineups would you like to see Nate McMillan and the coaching staff employ while Victor Oladipo's on the sidelines?
Yeah, I actually had an interesting one. I think Justin Holiday should actually be starting. So I was going to go with Brogdon at the 1, Lamb, and then Holiday at the 3 with Sabonis and Turner. So Holiday still gives you the 3-point shot in the offense that you need, especially with Brogdon going to be able to set him up. But he also gives you the perimeter defense that Warren might not be able to give you. So we don't really have anyone that can guard guys like LeBron, Giannis. I'm not saying that he can, but he might do a better job than them. That will also mean TJ Warren's the 6th man. He's going to be the go-to guy off the bench, which we don't really have right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I actually had that noted down as well, and I thought you two might think I'm a bit of an idiot. But I worry about that as well. What's our bench production going to be? I don't think we don't have a team when Oladipo's out where I think we should just slap our 5 best players on the court. We need to think strategically. Yeah. Who's going to be our bench producer? I know last year, Tyreke Evans and Sabonis, they did a good 1-2 punch off the bench. In previous years, Monta Ellis was meant to be that go-to guy off the bench.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it.
Yeah. We've always struggled with bench production. We always have. I think one of the best from recent memory has actually been Lance Stevenson coming off the bench, which is quite humorous because, like you said, Alex is in China. But I think, we can't slap our 5 best players on the court and then in the last 2 minutes of the first quarter, we give up an 8-0 run.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really funny that you guys both had Justin Holiday in your lineups because mine was a lineup that I'd actually like to see after Vic, but I had a before Vic, but I had an after Vic, and I'll shelve the before. But when Vic comes back, I'd like to see Brogdon, Oladipo, Justin Holiday, TJ Warren, Miles Turner.
Sabonis still coming off the bench.
Sabonis and Jeremy Lamb and Aaron Holiday bench players.
You know what? I like that, but I don't think Sabonis would go for that.
Yeah, especially in an extension year as well. So I think that's the only risky play there. But I do think that losing Sabonis in that second unit is going to really hurt, especially early in the year with Depot out. So maybe that's the path they do go down.
If Sabonis gets his money, and I think the consensus around the table is that he more than likely will before the start of the season, then hopefully he's in a position where he's financially secure. He doesn't need to play for his money, and therefore he'll be more willing to accept that sort of a role if the Turner-Sabonis experiment doesn't work out well. Because I feel like Warren has the opportunity to play power forward. I'm not sure about his defensive efforts in that position, but offensively, I think that can free him up to score and be almost a second option for us. So if we can get to that point and Sabonis is happy to come off the bench, then I think that's probably our most optimal lineup. But if it has to be Sabonis, then I think Turner, Sabonis, and Warren, I'm going to have to see a lot of production offensively out of those 3 guys. But probably for Sabonis and Warren at the forward spots, defensively, that's a concern.
Yeah, exactly. Especially on the perimeter, having both of them on there. That's why I had Holiday there, so you get that perimeter defense. Especially missing your best defender in Oladipo. You know.
I think with the defense, though, there's definitely gaps there. But I know in recent years we were all worried when we traded for Bogdanovic. Oh no, he's a terrible defender. Dan Burke always helps people.
It's a really good point.
He's a magician. That's why I never stress too much. Oh God, we traded for a guy who can't play defense. Dan Burke will always make them a better defender.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point.
And the system will make them a better defender that he creates around those players, which has been a strength of ours for years. But yeah, I think the Sabonis playing power forward, Warren playing small forward against you've got Milwaukee playing potentially Giannis and Chris Middleton at the forward spots. That's a lineup that scares me, and that's why I go to a Warren at power forward, Justin Holiday at small forward to guard those sort of guys. Because I feel like we don't necessarily have a transcendent second offensive player. We've got Vic, obviously, but we can't afford to just throw out our best 5 guys, as you said, because that might leak at really key times with our key rivals.
Yeah. So we chatted about this earlier. Who are we going with our backup point guard? And who are we going with, and who's McMillan going with? Because that's the more important question.
Yeah, I think I had wanted to raise a concern about TJ McConnell being on this team. We recently saw a report around the younger players being concerned about their minutes post Victor Oladipo injury. The expectation was that guys like Holiday would get more minutes. They didn't, in favour of veterans. Is the same thing going to happen because we have a guy like TJ McConnell who we know plays hard, hustles, he does all the little things really well. Not a highly talented sort of a guy, not a lot of potential. He's reached his potential, I would argue.
Almost like a Corey Joseph replacement, really.
Yeah, and
a lesser version.
And that's the concern. Yeah. Is Nate McMillan going to favour a guy like that over more of a project guy like an Aaron Holiday?
Even Sumner as well. You have 2 really talented young guards. So having TJ in the team is a little bit of concern for me. I do think we all know Nate. He will go for TJ. I think, especially at the start of the year. Although I wish Aaron would be the 6th man. Nate loves to play the veterans a bit more. He really didn't play Aaron a lot at all last year.
I think it might come down to situational games. If we're down 8 at three-quarter time, we need that spark off the bench to start the fourth. You'd insert a Holiday, but if we've got a lead and you want defense, you might have McConnell. I do watch a lot of Philadelphia games in the past, and TJ McConnell is really good. Philadelphia fans adore him. They really love him. They were devastated when he left. I was listening to a podcast he was on with Adrian Wojnarowski, and he mentioned a story where D'Angelo Russell was bringing up the ball and Brett Brown put TJ McConnell on, and Russell just shook his head and said, "Oh, can you give me a night off?" And Russell just gave the ball, I think, to Joe Harris each time to bring up the court. Now, that's someone you want on your team. If elite point guards are worrying when TJ McConnell's checking in, that's someone I want on the Pacers. But yeah, you do have to think we talk about TJ Leaf. It is a big year for Aaron Holiday as well. He's got so much upside, I think. But then again, he hasn't actually shown too much where, we're apparently saying he's untradeable.
Yeah, exactly. They have a lot of faith in him.
Yeah, that's a huge call.
Yeah.
Huge call.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were interested in him.
Yeah.
A lot of teams were calling the trades.
Larry Bird said he's a future All-Star. Now, he does have to show something this year. I know he's got to get the opportunity to do that, but he does need to show why we think he's untradeable.
Yeah, he has to show something in the first couple of months. Yeah. While Vic is out, he has to earn his playing time, number one, and then he has to capitalise on his playing time. And, we know that TJ will go hard at him in practice. We know that TJ is professional. He wants minutes. He craves the rotation, a spot in the rotation. And we also know that Nate will be predisposed to give veterans spots in the rotation over younger players. That's the report that's come out. I don't know whether it's something that is going to change with a guy who's been coaching for as long as Nate McMillan has. I very much doubt it. Yeah. So, the pressure is on Aaron Holiday to really build his own personal brand in that coaching staff, to be a favourite of Nate McMillan, and to earn those minutes and take advantage when he gets in. On a slightly different topic, I was listening to Zach Lowe during the week and Bill Simmons, and they actually floated a trade involving Domas Sabonis.
Bill Simmons, I love these trade ideas.
Yeah. It was,
He tried to trade for Miles Turner, I reckon, about a dozen times, and now he's gone to Domas as well. Yeah,
well, look, the fact that Zach Lowe was on it gave it a little bit more legitimacy for me. No disrespect, Bill, but it was Domas Sabonis for Jaylen Brown.
I did see that. I've
got a quick story because it's funny. I actually, on Twitter, you guys know, if you follow me on Twitter, I make a lot of jersey swaps, probably too much, but I made one for Jaylen Brown on the Pacers, and I think I captioned it like, "What if the Pacers traded Sabonis for Brown?" This was like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, and I got absolutely roasted in the comments. Like,
from Celtics fans or Pacers?
Pacers fans. Yeah. I was getting attacked from everywhere saying, "You are an idiot. What are you doing? Thank God you're not the GM." Like,
well, I get one part of it with the positional side of the trade.
I think it actually fits both teams. Celtics need a centre.
But I'd want something more to give up Sabonis.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown, he's inconsistent. He's shown flashes of being brilliant, but I'd be upset if that trade went through, to be honest. I don't think it will happen.
100%. I think if you're trading just to balance out your positions and that's your number one priority, then it's the wrong trade. If you're trading because it's the best asset / player, you're getting the best player back in the deal, or it's just an offer you can't refuse, then great, brilliant. But we also know that Danny Ainge will not ever give someone else an offer they can't refuse.
No.
He'll always lowball. So, I thought it was an interesting idea. I didn't like it at all, but I'm glad that you guys have validated the fact that I didn't like it at all. So sorry, Bill. All right, so finally, we'll go to a throwback moment of the week. So, Justin, you were really keen to share a throwback moment of the week.
I was.
What is yours?
Got to give the shout out to my all-time favourite player, and I'm hoping yours too, is Reggie Miller. It was his birthday last week, so thought we'd do the throwback moment for the GOAT. One of my best memories for him was his 2002 game-winning series. It wasn't game-winning, sorry, but overtime forcing half-court shot against New Jersey in 2002. I got a cool story about that. I was back in the day with no NBA League Pass and everything like that. I was watching the play-by-play on my phone. Thought we were going to lose, obviously, and I was on the old phone where it was just box score, and I remember it said like J. O'Neal defensive rebound with like 3 seconds left, and when you scrolled up, if someone had made a shot, the text was in green, and I scrolled up, just expecting to see end game and saw like green letters K Ollie assist, and I was like, you are kidding. So like, Miller made 43-foot shot, and
that's one of my favourite shots of all time.
I was at school and I threw my phone. My teacher kicked me out of the class, and I did not care. It was a really good moment.
Awesome. Good way to finish the episode, guys. We will keep bringing you episodes regularly up until the season, and then during the season, probably a little bit more regularly. But Alex, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Justin, thank you.
Thanks, guys. We'll chat soon.
And we'll see you again next time on the Paceroos Podcast. Thanks for listening.